New Thought Media Network and the Universal Joy Center proudly presents The Joy Show. One voice, one story, infinite inspiration. Join your host Barbara Jean every Friday at 3 p.m. Eastern Time or 1 p.m. Mountain Time. Tune in live or watch anytime on youtube.com/@UJOYC. The Joy Show with Barbara Jean, the perfect way to get inspired on Friday afternoons, only on New Thought Media Network. And please like, share, and subscribe. And now, let's join Barbara Jean on The Joy Show.
Good afternoon and welcome to The Joy Show, where joy is an acronym for just one you. I love to hear people's stories and then share them with you because each one of us is a unique emanation of spirit. Well, I want to begin today with our land acknowledgement. As we gather, we acknowledge that we are standing on the historical land of the Wendat people and more recently that of the Mississaugas and the Haudenosaunee nations. Well, it's now home to many First Nation, Métis, and Inuit people from across Turtle Island. So I invite us to walk alongside our Indigenous family, recognizing our shared stewardship of the earth. Let us carry forward the spirit of unity, understanding, and resilience that we've been reminded of through our reflections. Let us hold in our hearts the intention to learn, to support, and to advocate for justice and sovereignty for us all. In doing so, we acknowledge our interconnectedness and the strength that comes from standing together in truth, respect, and love. May this intention guide us in our actions and thoughts, inspiring us to contribute to a world where the dignity and rights of all are honored. Let us be mindful of the role we play in this ongoing journey towards unity. By making this acknowledgement, we strive to be allies and take an active part in reconciliation by honoring the land, the history, as well as the unique heritage and culture of the Indigenous peoples. This fosters our commitment to create a world that works for the highest and best good of all. Miigwech. Thank you. Well, I'm excited to be back this week and to have a remarkable guest. Reverend Christine Renée Monks is staff minister with the Center for Spiritual Living, Colorado Springs, a certified life coach, transgender activist, and public speaker. She is a grandmother, a father, a pilot, and an FAA-certified instrument flight instructor. Woo! Wow, that's a very interesting thing. We've got lots to learn here. Welcome, Christine.
Hey, Barbara Jean, how are you?
I am good. I am so good. Well, it's wonderful to have you here. And I'm looking at your bio, like you were a pilot.
Yeah, I don't fly big planes, but I fly Cessnas and single-engine planes weighing less than 12,500 pounds, which is what the Federal Aviation Agency certifies things for of my class. But yeah, I own my own 6-passenger plane for about 10 years, and that's just like a big old bucket of which you can pour unlimited amount of funds in. It was great fun. It gave me and my family a lot of freedom. We'd hop in the plane and fly back to see family in the Midwest of the United States in Ohio and Indiana. So that was great fun. But yeah, it's always been something I have enjoyed doing. And at some point in my life, I had enough money to do it.
Oh, good for you. Good for you. Well, now you are a transgender woman. And I know there's a lot of stuff going on in the U.S. right now about trans people, and so it's a little unnerving. How are you dealing with all that's happening in the States right now with respect to just yourself, even?
Yeah, no, great question. Sometimes I just need to get really centered and breathe and talk myself out of feeling really unsafe. Because it's easy to get into a feeling where I'm not sure. I mean, I break the law in certain states when I go to the women's restroom, and yet going into the men's restroom seems unsafe and disruptive for everyone.
Yeah.
So I'm just kind of trying to stay centered and be open to something better unfolding. I mean, it sounds really very much science of mind. Is there something better unfolding? But I have to believe that. I have to believe that we have, at least in the United States, kind of sat on both sides of the aisle, and that people are afraid of what being transgender represents because they don't understand it. I think oftentimes what we don't understand, we fear. And
Yes.
it's easy to vilify people like me as being these horrible people. And I'm not. I did everything in my power to figure out a way not to have to transition, which sounds kind of ironic because I'm much happier this way than I was before. But,
Yeah.
to act like mischaracterizing me and people like me makes the world a better place somehow just confuses me a lot. And I don't understand it.
Yeah, me either. And you're right, it does come from, it comes from that place of fear because they don't understand, they don't know what it is. And so then they start creating this drama about, what they think it might be or what somebody else said and it's really confusing. Now, how long ago did you transition?
I transitioned in 2017
Mhm.
when I was 61. So I
Wow.
spent most of my life, if you're good at math, you can figure out how old I am now. But um, I spent most of my life trying to figure out how I could make peace with this body I was in and this persona that I needed to be
Yeah.
as a man, as a male. And at some point I just thought, I'm supposed to be who I told my mom I was when I was 3, which is I'm supposed to be a girl. So I made it 58 years before I finally said, you know what, if you still feel this way after all this time, maybe this is in fact who you are and how you want to show up in the world. So I had no idea that becoming a minister and being a transgender person in this environment would be such interesting timing. And yet I don't feel it's an accident because I'm not really mad at anybody. And I would love to help people understand this journey so
Yeah.
that they might have more compassion about it.
Absolutely. Yeah, I agree with you. I agree with you. I think, part of the thing, of course, is ignorance. I don't understand, and so I fear it. And I think we need more people who go, I don't understand. I don't know what's going on. I hear all these reports, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to meet somebody and sit down and have a talk with them and see if I can come to some kind of understanding. I think that would be that would be the perfect thing for people to do, but most of us don't. And I've talked to some people and they go, well, I wouldn't know what to say. Well, what do you mean? It's a person. You got a person sitting in front of you. Have a conversation.
Well,
Like,
and you can ask,
and
may I ask
ask,
you
yeah,
something about your journey? And the person can decline,
yeah,
and that's okay too.
yeah,
Some of us are more comfortable being that lightning rod, if you will. And
yeah,
I honor and respect people who blend. I don't really like the word pass because that kind of implies that you're trying to be something you're not.
yeah.
And I am
But
a
blend.
woman.
Yes,
I
you are.
wasn't assigned female at birth, but I don't think that's the criterion that really applies here. So
Yeah,
you can ask and say, I don't really understand much about this. And everybody's talking and seems to have a very strong opinion. Are you open to me talking with you or asking you about it? And
yeah,
most all of the time, I'm very willing to do that.
yeah. Just say yes and share some stories. Now, now you're a father
Right.
and a grandmother, and so that I love that. And how was it with your family? Now, when you finally decided you're going to do this, what impact did that have on your family, and how is it going now?
Well, I had never told my daughters about it. The woman I was married to at the time knew about this part of me since before we'd gotten married, but
Mhm.
neither one of us ever really thought it would get to the point where I would decide I had to become Christine in order to be authentically myself.
Yeah.
So I told my daughters and told them there's something about me I've never told you. And they were both accepting. I mean, it's hard to hide who you really are. So I'm sure
That's
they
true.
kind of wondered all the time because I had some effeminate qualities and I wasn't trying to just totally squelch that aspect of who I was, because I always thought it was the most precious and beautiful part of who I was.
Yeah.
So, do they miss their old dad? I don't know. We don't really have deep conversations about that. They still call me dad. They didn't feel comfortable calling me mom because they have a mom and
They have
that's
a
not
mom.
me. And so that's okay. But they use she, her pronouns. So they will say, call dad and see what she wants to do and things like that.
Yeah, I love
And
that.
when I became a grandmother, I told my oldest daughter, I'm not going to be grandpa to your children.
Yeah,
And she thought that was fine. So
good.
we navigate that, although it's interesting because the 4-year-old recently said, I thought you told me the man with the beard was your dad, and now you just said Nana's your dad. How is that? And
Children are so
they're
incredible. They're the
they're
questions.
great. And I give my daughter tons of credit because she said, well, the man with the beard was my dad, and then my dad decided that she was really a girl, and so now she's Nana. And my granddaughter was okay. And I think kids are like that.
Kids
When
are
I
like,
was kind of in that gender fluid stage
yeah,
doing youth ministry work at Mile High Church,
yeah.
the kids would come up and say, are you a boy or a girl? And I'd say, I'm not sure. I think I might be both. And they were okay with it. And then
They
one
are,
day
yeah.
I was wearing a dress and it's like, I thought you said you were a boy. And I said, no, I decided I'm really a girl. And it's like, okay. So sometimes we overlay stuff on top of this that
That
maybe
we
isn't
don't.
even necessary,
Yeah, I agree. I agree.
but they were okay with that. They just, kids learn how to classify things, put all the squares in a pile, put all the triangles in a pile, separate the red blocks from the blue blocks. So the
Yeah,
idea of are you a boy or a girl is a very natural form of distinction for kids. And so,
absolutely.
but they don't have a lot of baggage that goes with it, I think.
Yeah, yeah, I think you're right. That's incredible. Now, what about your marriage?
Yeah, my marriage ended when I decided to transition. It was something that my wife didn't feel like she'd signed up for. And I recognize that and respect that. I had
Yeah,
hoped we could stay together. We had been married almost 30 years. So it was a
mhm,
long-term relationship. But
yeah,
um, that was part of the um, unintended consequence of this choice of mine.
yeah. At least she was aware of how you felt about yourself
Right.
before you got married. So it's not like you lied to her to say, you know, to keep it
Right.
hidden or whatever.
Yeah.
You let her know. So she had a choice right then and there to go. But mind you, 30 years ago, things were quite a bit different. We didn't hear so much information about trans people. So it's like it was, something that she probably thought would never manifest into anything else.
Yeah, and honestly, I never had seen a path for me to live authentically as myself either. So it's not
Yeah,
like either one of us was dealing with what happens when you decide to do that. So
exactly, exactly.
so anyway, it's okay. I wish her well on her life
Yeah,
journey, and hopefully she wishes me well on mine. We don't really talk much, which I'm a bit saddened by, but it's
of
okay.
course, of
Yeah.
course. And that, I mean, I know it's been a while, so but sometimes that changes. Sometimes over time people soften.
Yeah, I'm holding that possibility out there.
Yeah, yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. I think, when we think about the choices that we make in life, I think it really is very important that we live authentically, that we turn around and we find our true self and share that because we're really in a position of hiding, which has got to be destructive to the physical body, the mental, emotional body. Like we really harm ourselves by pretending we're something we're not.
Yeah, I think there's no doubt that we came here to be a unique expression of God, and trying to live into something that someone else thinks we should be seems incongruent with that.
Yeah.
I I was trying to find my life's purpose after my 60th birthday, which is what led me to this decision to transition when I was 61. And I was praying and I was meditating on what is my purpose in life. Because, I'd done all these cool things. I was a pilot. I owned my own airplane. I had my own business for 30 years. I mean, I had lots of really good accomplishments, but my life didn't feel fulfilled. And the answer I got was just be yourself. And I thought, well, that's a really lame answer. Don't I have a better life purpose than just being myself? And then I laughed because I thought, oh my goodness, you haven't had the courage to be yourself since you were 3 years old.
Yeah.
And people told you were not a girl and you were not supposed to be a girl, and get that out of your head. So it's kind of interesting. But I didn't want to die with no one knowing who I am. That was a big motivation. I wanted to be seen, and it's hard to be seen if you're hiding who you really are.
Exactly.
And I wanted to find my voice. And my voice turned out to be some advocacy and trans work, but it also turned out to be singing. I rejoined a choir at Mile High right after I transitioned. I'd never tried to sing alto before or any of that. And I had to work on getting my voice up into a more typical female range. But I have been singing my heart out for the last 8 years. So it's wonderful.
Oh, I love that. I love that. I think that's true, though, that when we show up for ourselves and really allow that, that's when everything around us starts to change. Some of it's difficult, but most of it ultimately is bringing us to a greater sense of joy. So I love that.
Just like the name of your show.
The Joy Show. Well, and the truth is there is just one you, right? There's just one me. So I always loved that acronym, just one you, because to me, that's when we can begin to share who we are as we are without putting all those masks up that hide us. That's when life gets a little bit easier, I think.
Yeah, and it's a challenging thing to do. I'm the chairman of the Centers for Spiritual Living, Diversity, Equity, Inclusion Committee. Chairwoman, chair, I don't know what the right gender neutral term for that is, but anyway, I chair that committee. And as we go through that and we try to create belonging, because DEI, at least in the United States, has got, come under the attack of the current administration, and we have to eradicate that, which I don't really understand, because diversity exists. I mean, you can't look around this world and not think, if you know nothing else about the divine, God, the universe, whatever you want to call this intelligence back of it all, it loves diversity. It loves diversity in people. It loves diversity in plants and animals and insects and all this stuff. So diversity is not in question. The question is, how can we make more inclusion? How can we include people? And ultimately, I think the end game is belonging. How can we create a place where I feel like I can belong, not fit in? Because fitting in means I'm going to kind of edit myself to make sure I show up in a way that you can accept me. But belonging means I can bring my whole self and it can be welcomed. And that's hard to do. And it's essential to do, in my opinion.
I agree that it is essential, and you're right. Stepping out from everything we've been taught, the way society has created us into this following mass that doesn't question but merely follows. And we have to start not just asking the questions within ourselves, but up voicing them. We need to be an advocate for change. And if we're not doing that, we're part of the problem. And the problem isn't going to go away unless at some point in time we turn around and do something different. So what are some of the things you're hoping to accomplish within CSL with the diversity committee?
I guess we try to increase people's awareness of things that impede diversity and inclusion. I think it's tricky to go out and seek diversity
Mhm.
It's tough to look and say, well, what's missing in our room? And let's go find one of those or two of those and bring them in, and then we'll be diverse, and then we'll be inclusive. Because I don't think that's how it works.
I don't think so either.
I think we create a container where someone who doesn't look like us, maybe they're not the same age that we are, maybe they're something else, and they look and say, ooh, I could be successful at this community. I could feel like I'm part of this community. So we're doing a webinar tomorrow on ageism. And so that's an axis of identity that sometimes we don't think about. You know, how welcoming are we to people who are not in our demographic age-wise? Is our congregation growing older with each year that goes by? How does all that work, right? So as we're working on these kinds of things, I think it's really important to look at that and say, oh, how can I be more welcoming for younger people, or maybe older people if we have a really young congregation? So I'm excited about offering that to people so that they can think about it and maybe find ways to show up differently or more curious in the world, right? It's so easy to other people, or use that term othering, by saying, well, you're not like me, so you must be bad, or ascribe bad qualities to people like that. But at the end of the day, like you said, we're all one. There's only one presence here today. And it's the divine expressing as lots of different diversity.
Exactly. And that's actually what creates more interesting aspects to life and living. I mean, if we were all exactly the same, man, would that be boring? Wouldn't take long to get tired of that. You know, and there's so much of ourselves that we don't like sometimes that I don't know that it would be all that good. We'd probably have even more wars. Because we're fighting
that's a whole nother topic. No, I think it would be boring beyond belief. We always think, why can't everybody think like I think? Why can't everybody act like I do? And it's like, you would be so bored so quickly.
Oh my gosh, yes, absolutely, absolutely. So with your activism, the stuff that you're working on, what are some of the things you're coming up against in the world at large, not just at CSL, but the world at large? What things are you coming up against as you begin to do this work, or as you continue to do it?
That's hard for me to come up with like a real quick, succinct answer on that. I notice when I travel in states that have these exclusionary bathroom laws, I start to get into my head and start feeling fear that someone's going to call me out and threaten to arrest me or something like that. So most of the time, I mean, I exist in the world as a woman. Okay. Gender is a social construct. I mean, everyone wants to act like it's based on our chromosomes, but it's not. We've never judged whether someone's a man or a woman or a boy or a girl based on their chromosomes, because we haven't even had access to their chromosomes very long. So you're a woman when you follow the rules of women in the world, and that's culturally grounded. It may be different in Canada than it is in the United States. It's certainly different in some of the South American countries and some of the Middle Eastern countries, what it means to exist as a woman in that. But part of it is just me feeling empowered to speak my truth. I don't lead with the fact that I'm a transgender woman, but neither do I hide it. So there's kind of a balance. I don't think that's necessarily the most interesting thing about me. And it's nice that you didn't jump right into that. It's like, oh, you're a pilot. Tell me about that. Okay. I mean, there's lots of interesting things that I've done in my life.
Yeah, absolutely.
And yet this is the one that seems like it's really unusual. And perhaps it is. So I'm not just dismissing that, but it's like, how do you do that kind of thing? When anybody asks me to share my story, I'm happy to do it. When something comes up where I feel people are making negative comments about trans folks or vilifying them unnecessarily. I mean, I hate it that the dialogue in the United States is whether we want biological men in our girls' locker rooms. I mean, that is just such a false narrative. that it
Yeah.
does nothing to further the conversation.
Exactly. It shuts it down.
Yeah, and when you think about a trans man, someone who is assigned female at birth, I mean, that's the way we generally talk about the words we would use within the trans or queer community. We would say,
Yeah.
are you assigned male at birth, or were you assigned female at birth? And those kinds of things. So for people who are assigned female at birth but have transitioned to male, so many of these laws invite them to, or require them to, use the men or the women's restroom. So now you've got someone who appears male, maybe has facial hair, maybe is looking like a man, and they're walking into a woman's restroom. Well, that's inviting them to be called out. And so how do you defend
Absolutely.
yourself? And if I walk into the men's room not looking like a man, not presenting as a man, then where do we go with that? So some of this stuff is, again, if we
Yeah.
could come up with a little, at least in my country, if we could calm the rhetoric down a little bit and
That
just
would
say,
help.
let's be curious about this. Okay, there's a difference between somebody walking in and saying, I'm a female and I identify and I need to use the women's restroom, and me doing it. I mean, it's just,
Yeah.
that's not the same thing, and it's not fair to collapse it.
I agree. And I think too that, you know, with the laws in the US and the way they've changed and some of the things they've done, I can understand that probably would produce a little bit of anxiety, because you do travel for your work other than ministry.
Right.
You're a consultant as well. So how does that work when you go and do
You know,
that?
I just
You
had to
just
go to
went to
Texas
Texas.
last week, and I just used the women's restroom. I walked into the airport and I thought, all right, if they arrest you, I guess you'll just have to deal with it. But nobody looked up. Okay.
Well, I think you
And
look like a woman, so
yeah, I do. And that's a privilege too, Barbara Jean. You
yeah,
know, I mean, some of my trans brothers and sisters and siblings have a much harder time blending in with how they identify internally. And that calls them out for being challenged or bullied or many other things. So I am grateful that the way I identify internally aligns nicely with how I'm able to present myself in the world.
absolutely, absolutely. Well, on that note, we're going to take a short little commercial break, and then we'll be back with more great conversation with Reverend Christine Renée Monks. And for now, you're watching The Joy Show here on the New Thought Media Network, and we'll be back in just a minute. Don't go away.
What I love about Anton is the community, the people. I get to come here every year and pick up right where I left off with so many wonderful soul-centered friends.
This is our first time here, and I can't tell you the joy I've felt listening to the wonderful words of the people who are teaching us and sharing with us.
I've enjoyed every topic that's been talked about, and I've enjoyed the people. They're knowledgeable, they're loving, and it's a great space to spend a few days for yourself and for others.
You feel the love. It is literally palpable.
Hi, I'm Reverend Dr. Jerry Troyer, Board President of the affiliated New Thought Network, Anson, speaking to you live and direct from Unity Village outside of Kansas City. We are a beloved spiritual community, and we'd love to have you join us.
So if you're thinking about it and you'd like to have a deep dive into your own soul and connect with others that are doing the same thing, then you might want to consider coming to the Anton Retreat next year, 2025, here at Unity Village. Peace and blessings to you.
Thought Media Network proudly presents It's All Love, Wednesdays at 4 p.m. Mountain Time, 6 p.m. Eastern, with Laura Mock as the presence of love, Maria Hartman, knowing truth, Wendy Wilson as the quality of presence, and Lara Brzezinski as the essence of joy. It's All Love, a space where we open into the heart, tap into the soul's deep wisdom, and enter into the energy of love, truth, presence, and joy. It's All Love, Wednesdays at 4 p.m. Mountain Time, 6 p.m. Eastern.
Well, welcome back. And we have been having just a delightful conversation with Reverend Christine Renée Monks. And I am so delighted to continue that conversation.
Yeah, this is pretty fun, isn't it?
It is, isn't it? Like we're just kind of cash, but I think we're getting out really good information. So what about some of the myths that are being perpetuated through media and whatever? Is there anything there particularly that we could address?
I don't know. You got anything in mind? What kind of myths have they been telling you, Barbara Jean?
Oh my goodness. Well, I just hear, being trans is bad and keep your children away and, all kinds of weird stuff like that. And I mean, a trans person is just a person.
I don't think trans people are grooming children into this queer life.
No.
If anybody ever said to me, "It's so cool to be trans," I really want to be trans. It's like, do anything you can to figure out a way to make peace with where you are without doing this, because it's not an easy path. So
Exactly.
I don't think any of that is a fair narrative of that. And that's just a straw man or whatever you want to call it that people use to vilify and strike fear in people about someone or somebody they don't know, right?
Yeah. And something they don't understand.
Yeah. I mean, I use the restroom for, I think, the exact same reason that you do, is because it's a biological need.
Yes.
Not so that I can meet people or sway people or be weird with people. And, the sad offshoot of all this is oftentimes that narrative causes people to be afraid to go into public restrooms. So it ends up meaning they walk around holding their, urine or their bodily functions until they get back inside because they're afraid of being accosted. And that seems really sad to me.
And that's not good for the body.
No, it's not.
Not good for the body at all. So I think.
Okay, so myth number one, we've dismissed that. We've proven that beyond any reasonable doubt that that's false.
That is false. That
Based
is
on
false.
the experience of one woman in the world, right?
Yeah, well, one voice, right? One voice from the collective.
Exactly.
We're all one. Yeah. So what about, like, I've heard, and I'm trying to think of how this was worded, but how young people now are not allowed to have medical reassignment or anything like that, or they're not allowed to take medications that would begin to prepare their body. At what age do you think I mean, you knew it at 3,
right?
Who you were. At what age, if a parent understands, like if your mom had looked at you and your dad had looked at you and went, of course, this is a girl. What are we going to do about that? Do you think it's fair, like, for a parent to just dress their child as the gender they are or the gender they were assigned? Like, how do you feel about that?
Well, that's a really great question. I know we only have a half hour left, but let me try to be laser on it. I think supporting your child and doing what you think is best for them is what I, as a parent, have always done with my kids and what I suspect you've done with your kids. Mm-hmm. So if I had come to my parents and insisted that I be allowed to wear a dress to school or grow my hair long. I mean, this was like the 50s, Barbara. So there wasn't
Yeah.
even the word transgender. So it was just you were either a sissy boy or, I mean, there was none of this. So it
tomboy.
wasn't feasible. Yeah, it wasn't feasible for me. But I do think supporting kids is important.
Yeah.
I will freely admit that it might be a phase. Okay, so I've got a T-shirt that says, "Look, Mom, it wasn't a phase," and but it might be. So I think supporting your child is a good thing to do. I know of no place where kids can get gender affirming surgery, or what used to be called a sex change operation or gender confirmation surgery. So that is a false narrative that kids are going into school as a boy and coming home as a girl. That's just like crazy.
Yeah, that's baloney.
The more nuanced question is, if someone is really certain that this is who they are, does it support them to allow them to do puberty blockers to delay their puberty? Puberty is one of the most dysphoric things probably for everybody.
Yeah.
You feel like your body's betraying you, but imagine if your brain tells you you're a girl and you're going through male puberty and your voice is getting deeper and you're doing all this stuff. It's very dysphoric. So what I believe is, with counseling, and this is not universally what everybody thinks should happen, but I think you have some counseling, not to talk you out of it, but to give you options and help you examine the consequences of that choice. Yeah. So if the parents can support it, getting some counseling about it. I mean, the suicide rate, attempted suicide rate among trans kids is hugely high, like 25 times the general population. So this idea that we should just make sure none of them can do it just increases the likelihood that they're going to want to take their life or attempt to. And that cannot be a win for anybody.
No.
So everywhere I know, you have to be in therapy for at least a year or more before you could have any kind of physical body altering surgery. And you have to live full time in your gender. So I transitioned in 2017 and began cross hormone therapy, which meant I started taking estradiol and progesterone and suppressing my testosterone. And I didn't do any body modifications at all for over a year and then 2 years. So, and it gave me a chance to see, what is it really going to be like living in this life? And so I think that with kids, we need to be sensitive, but to act like there's no cost for restricting them, that's not true. And to act like just because somebody says I'm a girl, that you need to never look back and treat them like a girl and allow them to, do gender therapy at 5 or 6. I mean, nobody does that. It's just not even a reasonable conversation. So I don't know whether that's a nuanced enough answer for you, but I think it's worthy of a conversation. And I think reasonable people can disagree. And certainly in the United States, it's a big deal about whether transgender girls should be allowed to compete as girls in sports. And that's a whole nother thing. And I think they should, because it's, how humiliating would that be as a transgender girl to come out as a girl and then be forced to compete against the boys, which just says to everybody, we don't see you and we don't believe you.
Exactly.
So
you don't belong.
And I don't think there are a lot of boys just lining up to be girls so they can think they can win in the track meets. I mean, I'm not saying there's not potentially some physical benefits in some sports from being assigned male at birth, but back to, what are we about? Are we about creating an inclusive society for people, or are we about some abstraction of, is it fair or is it not fair? Because there are so many things in this life that I don't know how you even dissect the fairness or inequality of it. That's a really difficult rabbit hole to go down for me.
Yeah, it is. And I was saying to somebody the other day, I overheard some nurses at the hospital talking about oh, this is so unfair. And I said to my granddaughter and them, I said, life is fair because it's unfair for everybody, which makes it fair. It was like,
Yeah.
it's, we spend a lot of time projecting our insecurities and our pain and our traumas and stuff on other people. And it would be really nice if we just sort of went into ourselves and went, so what do I need? What's mine to do? How can I live fully as me? So tell me, as a minister, trans minister, I love that. Um, how has your congregation dealt with you, and how have you how have you worked that out between the two churches you've been a part of, or two centers, excuse me?
Yeah, no, I fair enough. They've noticed more than I thought they would. I never thought anybody would pay attention to my transition, and certainly at Mile High, everybody knew about my transition. And
Yeah.
I don't think they'd had a lot of experience with people transitioning very publicly who were really involved in the center, in the church.
Yeah.
And I have been universally, I'm trying to think whether I've had any exceptions to that, been accepted and supported. Most everybody believes this is like a tremendously courageous journey that I'm on.
Yeah.
And they appreciate that. I've had some people point out to me that they've had really strong feelings against trans people in the past, but now they're more open. I gave a talk at a center, and someone came up to me afterwards and said, I really enjoyed your talk, but 10 years ago, I would have walked out. And it's like, oh, why would you have walked out 10 years ago? Because you're trans. And it's like, okay,
Yeah.
thank you for sharing that with me. So
Wow.
I don't know. I mean, part of it, when you show up authentically and vulnerably, and if I share with you that I'm trans, and I share with you that I decided to do this at 61, I mean, unless you just have this really hard heart, how could you not think, oh my gosh? I mean, I think most of us regret the things we never had the courage to do in our lives rather than the
Absolutely.
things we did. So
Yeah.
I'm so glad most people don't feel like they need to change their sex or change their gender to be their authentic selves. But isn't it neat when somebody does? I mean,
Yeah.
it's like, wow, I can speak my truth. Look at Christine. She speaks and lives her truth in a way that I don't even
I can't even
understand.
imagine. Yeah.
Right? Exactly. So I don't know.
Yeah.
It's been generally very good.
Oh, I love that. I love that. I think that, whenever there's a shift in consciousness and non-binary, the, trans, the whole LGBTQ community, like you look at all this stuff and people are going, well, I only say they, them when I'm talking about a group. No, that's not true. Because you'll sit back and say, well, mom didn't come over yesterday because they were busy doing something else.
Yeah. Or somebody left their umbrella in the
Yeah.
in the
They left their
sanctuary,
umbrella.
right? They left their umbrella,
Exactly. Yeah.
and
So
yeah,
that one I kind of right away sort of went, no. And then the other thing in our teaching is we teach oneness. And so if we're all one, then how can there be anything that's not a part of the divine, right? So how I'm created is how I'm created. And if I can honor that, then I can live my best life, I
absolutely.
think. Yeah. And if I'm hiding that, because I remember meeting a minister years ago that I could just never connect with. And then one day this person showed up at a conference as a woman.
Mm.
And I was like, wow. And we had a conversation. I'm like, oh, now I can connect with you. It was like the hiding. I knew something wasn't right.
Right.
It's like I could sense it. And yet I had no idea what it was until they showed up as a woman. And then I was like, oh, she's a girl. Got it. Yeah.
Yeah, and that incongruity. You're very empathic in my experience of you, and I think
Yeah.
that incongruity came across.
Absolutely. I think, and I think we're definitely on a journey. When I think about life and what we do here, I really believe that we're truly on a journey. And the journey is what life is. It's not about a destination, it's only about a journey. And there is no destination. If we were clear about that, there's simply the journey. And that journey is going to be whatever we make it. We might want to blame this person or that person or the other person, but the truth is we are making our lives ourselves. And if we can really fall in love with who we are as we are and become more authentically that, then we bring and model a behavior, I think, that is far more life sustaining. But because it's more honest, I think people relate to it so much better. You got
I
to be
love
you.
that. I love that.
You got to be you.
Well,
I
I'm so
gotta
glad we
be
talked
me.
about pronouns, though, too. And you use she, they pronouns.
You there. Yeah.
Tell me about that.
Well, I use that for two reasons. One is to sharing my pronouns is really important to me because I want people to know that I am aware. And so that if they are non-binary, they don't have to fear, talking to me or coming to my center or whatever. The other thing is I do consider myself queer. If I had been born at a different time, I may have married a woman instead of a man. Um, and so I look at my own sort of fluidity, and I actually don't truly believe in, everybody's purely a man or purely a woman in their sexuality. I don't believe that. And when I hear people go, "Oh, I could never be gay, that's so awful." I'm going, "I'm not so sure." Like when you fall in love, I don't think it's about gender. It's not about the sex somebody was assigned. It's like I fall in love um, because I fall in love. And, whatever that were to look like has to be, we've got to kind of honor that, I think. Love is love. It's not something that necessarily we can even control it. Like it tends to happen kind of unexpectedly sometimes. And so if we allow ourselves to be more, I don't know, more accepting of just life and love and really what it is, I think there'd be a lot less, fighting and battling for our little piece of the world. I think we could find it easier to connect with each other. And I have two children who are queer and, two others who are not, but who knows? And, when it comes right down to it, I think we've labeled it as bad for so many years. And when I was growing up, I'd never even heard of a lesbian. I didn't know what that was. I knew what I felt, but I didn't know what it was.
You've given us a lot to unpack there, and I want to put my teaching hat on for just a second, if you'll allow me. Is
Please.
because so queer has become a term that we've kind of reclaimed in the community to whereas it used to be a pejorative term, and it's now being reclaimed as an identity.
Yes.
Gender identity is about who you are and how you see yourself on that spectrum of masculine to feminine, male to female, all of that.
Yeah.
The sexual orientation or attraction is who you're attracted to. And oftentimes that's another access of this. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I had someone ask me right after I transitioned, "So are you gay?" And it's like, I don't even know what that question means now. Would you think I was gay if I liked men? Or would you think I was gay if I liked women?
Exactly.
But I'm sure in their mind, if I liked men, that would make me gay because they didn't really see me as a woman. So somewhere in that, am I a lesbian? Am I bisexual? Am I homosexual? Heterosexual, pansexual, omnisexual. There's all these new terms that are coming out about whether you exclusively like men or exclusively like women based on how you identify. There's a lot to unpack there. But it's great that you brought that into the conversation, because again, a lot of times that idea is, oh, so you're gay. And it's like, well, I may or may not be gay, but we'd have to decide, who do you think I would be attracted to? Or am I just open to it? You know, I love a person. I mean, that was originally my understanding of pansexual. And then someone pointed out that omnisexual was a better term for liking men, women, and anything in between that might include trans people, right? So you could, sometimes people don't think trans women can be lesbians because they don't think they're really women. So there's lots of interesting axes of that whole conversation. But thank you for bringing that all in and showing that you're providing your pronouns as a way to be supportive. And I love that. That's why I do too. Not that, you know, because it's respectful to offer and ask people their pronouns. So you're not asking them to other themselves by doing that.
Exactly. I love how you talked about that, because I think that's really an important understanding, to really separate our sexuality from our gender. And I think sexuality has gotten a really bad rap over many years, because sex has become this taboo thing, and yet it's becoming more and more open than it's ever been. And then it's being crushed from other people who are being judgmental about how sex is occurring, or when it's occurring, or who it's occurring with. And really, when it comes right down to it, we were made in the image and likeness of the Creator, and we are sexual beings. We have that appetite, or whatever. Most people do. Now, there are people who are asexual and just are busy doing other things and not particularly interested, and then others who are highly sexual. So what is the thing with sex that we can begin to unpack? Because I think too that that's part of a lot of the dysfunction in our society, is we've decided that sex is bad unless it's done in a specific way.
I love how you jump into the deep end of the pool so easily.
It's fun.
It's interesting. If God didn't want people to have sex, why our sexual urges peak when we're about 13, and our prefrontal cortex doesn't peak till we're about 30? Okay, you go riddle me that, Batman. Okay, what's up with that?
Exactly.
So, but it's a way to control people, right? Because sexual urges are natural. They do start to really peak during puberty, when your body is just a rage of hormones, and your brain is not fully developed. So, you know, next to life, I think our need to procreate is one of the strongest biological desires, and everything in life has that, right? There's nothing that you can look at that will not sacrifice its own life to save the life of its young, or to lay its eggs. Or, I mean, look at those poor salmon swimming upstream so they can lay their eggs where they were born, and then they die because they're exhausted. I mean, it's kind of interesting, right? And then people are getting on the pulpit saying, you know, you shouldn't have sex till you're married. It's like, what? You know, it's just, and I'm not making any moral
pronouncements. You better marry a man in our case, or a woman.
Exactly, and they better be
do anything else. It ain't real.
It ain't real. Yeah. So no, it's a lot. It's but I appreciate the fact that people are being more curious about it, and I think it's just the natural pushback against people who try to deny what seems patently real to me. And it's much better to try to have a conversation about it rather than an edict about it. But
yeah, exactly.
It's a big subject, Barbara Jean.
Well, I do like to jump off into the deep end. You're right about that. It's what makes these shows so fun, is that, you know, I can do that and feel good about it. I actually, prior to starting my ministerial training, I did go to college to become a journalist. That was that was my love. That was what I thought I was going to do. for my life's work until I realized how much bad news was out there and that's what they really wanted me to talk about. And I'm like, no. And I found this, shortly
Yeah. Well,
thereafter.
this is right in your wheelhouse then, isn't it?
Well, it truly is. So one of the last questions that I do like to ask, because we're down to our last 4 minutes, if you can
Wow.
believe. I know it goes by quick. And what I'd like to ask is, what do you think is the most important takeaway from our show today? What for you should people really take away from this? If they take away nothing else, one thing.
If you're offered the choice between making a quick judgment about someone or being curious about them and their journey, I'd invite you to choose curiosity.
Oh, that's beautiful. That's beautiful. I love that curiosity, that desire to understand someone else. What a beautiful thing. Like that to me is the top of the top. Like if we could just sort of open up to the idea that there is so much more going on in our world than we can touch. Imagine what curiosity could do for us, opening our minds and our hearts and expanding ourselves into, I don't know, loving, creative beings. That could be good.
Yeah. No, it's a wonderful human quality to be
Mhm.
curious about it.
Yeah, I think so
And it's
too.
inviting.
It
It
is.
invites a conversation, right? It
Yeah.
invites exploration.
Well, I think that's what's most important. And, I've got to say that I'm really, truly grateful that you came on the show today because we did, travel down this road, I think, in a really wonderful way. And I'm truly hopeful that there are people out there listening who have maybe been educated a little bit so they can become more curious. And I think the takeaway for me today is about belonging. And I think that's what we all want. It's why we wear the masks. We're trying to get people
Mhm.
to like us.
To
And
like us.
yeah, so, oh, what a joy.
Yeah.
What a joy
Yeah.
having you
Thank
here
you.
today.
Thank you for inviting me to be here today. This has been really fun, and I get to hang out for an hour with you. So that's pretty joy inspiring, isn't it?
Yeah, well, for me too. For me too. Well, on that note, we're going to have to close the show because we're getting to the end of our time. So I want to thank you for being here. I want to thank everybody who has watched the show today. And I want to invite you to be sure to watch it again next week and like, share, and subscribe. Like, share, and subscribe. And check out other programming on the New Thought Media Network. There really is a lot going on here. It's positive, it's productive. And in fact, I'm going to be back here at 7 p.m. Eastern Time tonight, 5 o'clock Mountain, to bring the good news. So if you're looking for good news, you can find it right here on the New Thought Media Network at 5 p.m. Mountain today, 7 p.m. Eastern. Thank you, Christine. Thank you, Dea, for producing the show for us. And I just want to say like, share, and subscribe, and be sure to, maybe donate to the New Thought Media Network. It truly is a wonderful organization, and we are going to bring more and more good stuff to you. So thank you for watching. Bye for now.
Bye-bye.
On behalf of everyone at New Thought Media Network, thank you for being a member of our virtual family. Your financial contributions help share the New Thought message with people from around the world. Please visit and contribute at www.ntmedia.org/donate. New Thought Media Network, come be you. And please like, share, and subscribe. Until next time, peace and blessings.